Everyone, today I want to talk about a phrase many of us have heard: be a nice girl. We've been taught to be polite, accommodating, and to put others before ourselves. While kindness is a virtue, being too nice can become a burden, holding us back from confidence, success, and self respect. It's time to stop being the nice girl and start being the strong, assertive, and self respecting woman you are meant to be. Confidence is more important than being liked, because in the long run, how you see yourself matters far more than how others perceive you. Many of us grow up believing that being liked is the ultimate goal, that if people approve of us, we are doing something right. We go out of our way to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to keep our opinions to ourselves for fear that they might upset someone. We become experts at reading the room, adjusting our behavior, and making sure we don't ruffle any feathers. But the harsh truth is that no matter what we do, not everyone will like us. No amount of kindness, politeness, or self-sacrifice will make every single person approve of us. And chasing that approval is an exhausting, never-ending race with no real finish line. Confidence, on the other hand, gives us something much more valuable than temporary approval. It gives us self-respect. When you are confident, you don't need constant validation from others. You don't need to shapeshift into what people want you to be. You stand firm in who you are, what you believe, and what you deserve. Confidence allows you to walk into a room and own your space without seeking permission. It allows you to say no without guilt, to set boundaries without fear, and to prioritize your happiness without worrying about whether others will judge you for it. People are naturally drawn to confidence. When you believe in yourself, others believe in you too. But more importantly, when you are confident, it doesn't matter if everyone likes you, because you no longer depend on their approval to feel good about yourself. You understand that respect is more valuable than popularity, and that being true to yourself is worth more than fitting in. You start to realize that the people who truly matter in your life are the ones who respect you for who you are, not the ones who only like you when you're convenient for them. Confidence is not about being arrogant or dismissing other people's feelings. It's about valuing your own just as much as you value theirs. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to shrink yourself just to be more palatable to others. When you choose confidence over being liked, you stop walking on eggshells, you stop second-guessing yourself, and you stop allowing other people's opinions to dictate your choices. Instead, you start living life on your own terms, making decisions based on what truly makes you happy rather than what will keep others comfortable. And in doing so, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of trying to please everyone, and instead you step into your power. People-pleasing is exhausting and unhealthy because it requires constant emotional labor with little to no return. Many of us fall into the trap of always wanting to be helpful, agreeable, and available for others. We convince ourselves that saying yes to every request, accommodating every demand, and avoiding conflict at all costs makes us good people. But over time, this habit becomes draining. We begin to notice that while we go out of our way to make others happy, our own needs are repeatedly pushed aside. We feel exhausted from always being the one who compromises, who adjusts, who carries the emotional weight of every situation. The problem with people-pleasing is that it creates an expectation. When you constantly say yes, people assume that you always will. They stop considering that you might be tired, overwhelmed, or simply not interested. They stop asking if you're okay because you've trained them to believe that your feelings don't need to be taken into account. And when you finally gather the courage to say no, the reaction can be disappointing. People may guilt-trip you, act surprised, or even accuse you of being selfish, when in reality all you are doing is setting a boundary for your well-being. Constantly striving to please others also creates resentment. You start feeling unappreciated, like your kindness is being taken for granted. You begin to notice how much effort you put in compared to what you receive in return. But the truth is, no one will stop taking advantage of you until you decide to stop allowing it. It is up to you to break the cycle, to prioritize yourself without guilt, and to recognize that your worth is not defined by how much you do for others. True kindness should be freely given, not extracted under the pressure of wanting to be liked. Choosing yourself doesn't make you a bad person, it makes you a person who values their time, energy, and well-being. You deserve to take up space because you are just as important as anyone else in the room. From a young age, many women are taught to be quiet, agreeable, and non-confrontational. We are encouraged to avoid making people uncomfortable, to let others speak first, and to downplay our achievements so we don't seem arrogant. But in doing so, we learn to shrink ourselves. We hesitate before voicing our opinions, we apologize unnecessarily, and we question whether our presence is even needed in certain spaces. But the truth is, no one else is going to give you permission to take up space. You have to claim it for yourself. Taking up space means recognizing that your thoughts, feelings, and experiences are valuable. It means speaking up in a meeting even if your voice shakes, expressing your needs in a relationship without fear of being seen as demanding, and walking into a room with the confidence that you belong there. Too often we wait for external validation before allowing ourselves to be seen and heard. We assume that if we are quiet, people will automatically recognize our worth. But that's not how the world works. Those who take up space, who advocate for themselves, and who refuse to be overlooked are the ones who are remembered and respected. It's not about being loud for the sake of it or demanding attention at all times. It's about understanding that you have a right to exist fully, unapologetically, and without constantly worrying about whether you are making others uncomfortable. When you own your presence, you inspire others to do the same. You show that confidence is not arrogance, that assertiveness is not aggression, and that taking up space is not something to be ashamed of. The world needs your voice, your perspective, and your presence. So stop minimizing yourself and start showing up as the powerful person you were always meant to be. Being too agreeable holds you back in ways you may not even realize. At first, saying yes to everything seems like the easiest way to get along with others, avoid conflict, and be seen as a team player. But over time, always agreeing with what others want, even when it's not what you want, can start to erode your confidence and prevent you from achieving your full potential. In workplaces, for example, people who are too agreeable often get overlooked for promotions, assigned extra work without recognition, or expected to carry burdens that others wouldn't accept. Why? Because they have unknowingly signaled that they will always go along with whatever is asked of them. Instead of being seen as strong and capable, they are seen as easy to manage, as people who won't push back or demand better treatment. In personal relationships, being too agreeable can lead to feeling unheard and undervalued. You might find yourself always going along with what your friends or partner want, even when it's not what you truly desire. Over time, this leads to resentment. You start to feel as if your opinions don't matter, as if your desires are secondary to everyone else's. But the reality is, people respect those who have their own thoughts, ideas, and preferences. Constantly agreeing does not make you more likable, it makes you invisible. People may enjoy the convenience of having someone who always goes along with their plans, but they will not see you as a leader, an equal, or someone with strong convictions. True respect comes from having a voice, standing up for yourself, and showing that your opinions carry weight. Being agreeable is not the same as being kind. Kindness means treating people with respect and consideration. But it does not mean sacrificing your own needs just to make others comfortable. If you want to succeed, if you want to be valued, you must be willing to challenge ideas, express disagreement when necessary, and stand firm in your beliefs. The world does not reward those who remain silent. It rewards those who are willing to take a stand, advocate for themselves, and demand the respect they deserve. Self-worth comes from within, not from how much others approve of you. Many people, especially those who have spent their lives being nice girls, have been conditioned to seek external validation. They want to be told they are good, kind, and likable, and they feel uneasy when someone disapproves of them. But living for external approval is a never-ending cycle of self-doubt. The truth is, no matter how much you do for others, there will always be someone who doesn't appreciate it. No matter how kind you are, there will always be people who misunderstand or judge you. If your self-worth is dependent on the approval of others, you will constantly be chasing something that can never be fully attained. True confidence comes from knowing your own value regardless of what others think. It means recognizing that you are enough just as you are, not because someone else says so, but because you believe it yourself. When you stop looking to others to validate your worth, you gain the freedom to live life on your own terms. You no longer need to overextend yourself to prove you are good enough. You stop feeling anxious about whether people like you or approve of your choices. Instead, you begin to make decisions based on what makes you happy, what aligns with your values, and what brings you fulfillment. This shift in mindset is powerful. When you stop seeking approval and start cultivating self-worth from within, people sense the change. They see that you no longer need their validation to feel confident. Ironically, this often leads to even more respect and admiration from others because people are drawn to those who stand firmly in their own value. But the most important part is that even if others don't approve, it no longer matters. Your worth is not something that anyone else can give or take away, it is something you define for yourself. Choosing to be respected over being liked is one of the most important decisions you can make. For too long, many of us have been conditioned to believe that likability is the key to success, that if we are pleasant, accommodating and agreeable, people will naturally value us. But the reality is, being liked is fleeting. People's opinions change based on their moods, their needs and their own personal biases. You could spend your whole life bending over backward to make others happy, only to find that their approval is temporary and conditional. On the other hand, respect lasts. When you demand respect, people may not always like you, but they will acknowledge your strength, your boundaries, and your ability to stand up for yourself. Respect is built through action. It is earned when you show that you will not tolerate being taken for granted, when you assert yourself, and when you hold others accountable for how they treat you. It requires you to speak up when necessary, to enforce your boundaries without apology, and to prioritize your own well-being over the fleeting comfort of being well-liked. The fear of being disliked often holds people back, but the truth is, the people who truly matter in your life will respect you even more when you stand your ground. And those who react negatively, they were never going to respect you in the first place. When you shift your focus from being liked to being respected, you stop making decisions based on how others will perceive you. Instead, you start making choices that align with your values, your goals, and your happiness. You become stronger, more self-assured, and more in control of your own life. The right people will admire you for it, and most importantly, you will admire yourself. Being nice can lead to being taken for granted because people often mistake kindness for weakness. Many of us are taught that being agreeable, accommodating, and putting others first makes us good people. We believe that if we are always helpful, polite, and self-sacrificing, others will appreciate and reciprocate our efforts. But reality doesn't always work that way. Instead of being valued for our kindness, we often find ourselves being used. When you continuously say yes, when you never set boundaries, when you always prioritize others over yourself, people start to assume that it's just who you are, that you are someone who will always be available, who won't complain, who will bend and adjust to fit their needs. At first, it might feel good to be needed, to be the one people turn to for support, but over time the imbalance becomes clear. You realize that the same people who constantly rely on you for favors, emotional support, or work commitments are rarely there when you need something in return. They expect your kindness without acknowledging the effort it takes. You might even notice that people stop thanking you, that they no longer check in on how you're feeling, or that they simply assume you will always say yes because you always have in the past. The danger in being taken for granted is that it slowly chips away at your self-respect. You begin to feel exhausted, unappreciated, and sometimes even resentful. But here's the hard truth. People will continue to take from you as long as you allow them to. It is up to you to change the pattern. You must recognize that your time, energy, and generosity are valuable, and you must start enforcing boundaries to protect them. When you stop overextending yourself, when you say no without guilt, when you prioritize your own needs, you teach others to respect you. And the people who truly value you will not only respect your limits, they will appreciate you even more. Because they understand that your kindness is a choice, not an obligation. Nice girls struggle to set boundaries because they have been conditioned to believe that saying no is rude, selfish, or unkind. From an early age, many of us are taught that being liked is more important than being respected. We are praised for being cooperative, for being easygoing, for not making a fuss. We learn to associate setting boundaries with being difficult or disappointing others. So we avoid it at all costs. Instead of speaking up when something bothers us, we stay silent. Instead of expressing our needs, we push them aside in favor of what others want. And instead of saying no when we are overworked, exhausted, or simply uninterested, we force ourselves to say yes to keep the peace. But the reality is, failing to set boundaries doesn't just harm us, it also teaches others how to treat us. When we consistently put others ahead of ourselves, they start to expect it. They don't see our sacrifices as extraordinary, they see them as normal. And when we finally decide to say no, they might react with confusion, frustration, or even anger because they have grown accustomed to our constant availability. This is why many nice girls struggle with guilt when they begin to enforce boundaries. They worry about how others will react, whether they will be seen as selfish, or whether they will lose relationships by standing up for themselves. But boundaries are not a form of rejection, they are a form of self-respect. Setting boundaries does not mean you don't care about others. It means you care about yourself too. It means recognizing that your time and energy are valuable and that you have the right to protect them. Healthy relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on mutual respect. And anyone who truly values you will not only accept your boundaries but also respect them. Learning to say no is one of the most empowering things you can do because it shifts your focus from seeking approval to prioritizing your own well-being. You deserve to take up space because your voice, your ideas, and your presence are just as important as anyone else's. Yet many of us have been taught to shrink ourselves, to stay quiet, to avoid drawing too much attention to ourselves. We apologize excessively even when we've done nothing wrong. We hesitate before speaking up in meetings or conversations, worrying that our opinions might not be valuable enough. We hold back from pursuing opportunities because we don't want to seem too ambitious, too confident, or too demanding. Over time, this habit of making ourselves small becomes deeply ingrained, and we start to believe that we should only take up space when invited to do so. But the truth is, you do not need permission to exist fully, to express yourself, or to take up the space that is rightfully yours. Your thoughts, ideas, and contributions matter, and the only way people will recognize that is if you start showing up for yourself. Taking up space means walking into a room with confidence even if you feel nervous inside. It means voicing your opinions without constantly second-guessing whether they are good enough. It means claiming your place in the world without waiting for someone else to validate your worth. When you start taking up space, some people might be uncomfortable, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because they are not used to seeing you assert yourself. That is their issue, not yours. You are not responsible for making yourself small to accommodate others. The right people will respect your confidence, and those who don't were never truly invested in your success to begin with. The more you allow yourself to be seen and heard, the more you inspire others to do the same. Confidence is more important than being liked, because at the end of the day, how you see yourself is far more significant than how others see you. Many people, especially those who have spent years being the nice girl, fall into the trap of prioritizing likability over self-respect. They avoid difficult conversations because they don't want to upset anyone. They go along with decisions they don't agree with because they don't want to seem confrontational. They put other people's opinions above their own needs, hoping that if they are kind and agreeable enough, they will be liked and accepted. But this constant pursuit of approval comes at a cost. It forces you to live according to what others expect instead of what you truly want. The truth is, not everyone will like you, no matter what you do. You could be the kindest, most accommodating person in the world, and there will still be people who misunderstand, criticize, or dislike you for reasons beyond your control. Trying to please everyone is a losing battle. Confidence, however, gives you something much more valuable than fleeting approval. It gives you self-respect. When you are confident, you don't need constant validation from others. You don't need to adjust yourself to fit their expectations. You know your worth, and that self-assurance allows you to move through the world with strength and independence. People are naturally drawn to confidence. When you believe in yourself, others believe in you too. But more importantly, when you are confident, it doesn't matter if everyone likes you, because you no longer rely on their approval to feel good about yourself. You understand that respect is more valuable than popularity, and that being true to yourself is worth more than fitting in. You stop walking on eggshells, you stop second-guessing yourself, and you stop allowing other people's opinions to dictate your choices. Instead, you start living life on your own terms, making decisions based on what truly makes you happy, rather than what will keep others comfortable. And in doing so, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of trying to please everyone, and instead step into your power. Sacrificing your needs for others will never lead to true fulfillment, because constantly putting yourself last only breeds exhaustion, resentment, and self-neglect. Many people who identify as nice girls have been conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to how much they do for others. They feel a deep sense of obligation to always be available, helpful, and accommodating, often at the expense of their own happiness. They say yes when they want to say no, they suppress their own desires to make others comfortable, and they convince themselves that prioritizing themselves is selfish. But over time, this pattern of self-sacrifice becomes damaging. Instead of feeling fulfilled, they feel drained. Instead of feeling appreciated, they feel taken for granted. And instead of feeling happy, they feel lost. Because in the process of always caring for others, they have forgotten how to care for themselves. The reality is, you cannot pour from an empty cup. When you neglect your own needs for the sake of others, you deplete your emotional, mental, and even physical well-being. You push yourself past your limits, convincing yourself that being strong means enduring everything without complaint. But strength is not about how much you can tolerate. It is about knowing when to set boundaries, when to say no, and when to prioritize your own well-being. The people who truly care about you will not expect you to exhaust yourself for their sake. They will respect your limits. They will appreciate your efforts without demanding them, and they will support your decision to take care of yourself. Sacrificing yourself for others may bring temporary approval, but it will not bring lasting fulfillment. True happiness comes from living a life that honors your own needs, desires, and goals. It means recognizing that you deserve the same kindness and consideration that you give to others. It means allowing yourself to rest, to recharge, and to say no without guilt. It means understanding that putting yourself first is not selfish, it is necessary. The most successful, confident, and fulfilled people are not the ones who constantly give until they have nothing left. They are the ones who understand the importance of balance, who give from a place of abundance rather than exhaustion, and who recognize that their happiness matters just as much as anyone else's. It is not your job to save everyone. It is not your responsibility to make sure everyone else is happy while you suffer in silence. You have the right to prioritize yourself, to set boundaries, and to say no without explanation. Your life is yours to live, not a constant sacrifice for the comfort of others. And the moment you start valuing yourself as much as you value others, you will realize that true fulfillment comes not from pleasing everyone, but from honoring yourself. People-pleasing will never guarantee love, respect, or appreciation, because constantly trying to meet everyone else's expectations only leads to disappointment and exhaustion. Many people who struggle with people-pleasing believe that if they are kind enough, helpful enough, or agreeable enough, others will automatically love and respect them in return. They think that by avoiding conflict, always saying yes and putting other people's needs before their own, they will be seen as valuable and worthy. But the truth is, no matter how much you do for others, there will always be people who take advantage of you, who fail to appreciate your efforts, or who simply don't value you the way you deserve. People-pleasing often comes from a deep-rooted fear of rejection. Many nice girls have been taught that their worth is tied to how much they can give, how well they can serve others, and how little trouble they can cause. They believe that love and acceptance must be earned through self-sacrifice. But this belief is damaging because it leads to a life where your happiness is dependent on the approval of others. It forces you to constantly seek validation, to adjust your personality to fit what others want, and to put your own desires aside in the hopes that someone will appreciate you for it. But the hard truth is, genuine love and respect are never built on self-sacrifice. The people who truly care about you will not love you because of how much you do for them. They will love you for who you are, whether you are going out of your way for them or not. Another harsh reality of people-pleasing is that it often backfires. Instead of earning more love or respect, people who constantly try to please others often find themselves being overlooked, undervalued, and even disrespected. Why? Because when you prioritize everyone else over yourself, you teach people that your needs don't matter. You show them that you will always put them first, even at your own expense, and unfortunately, some will take advantage of that. Instead of seeing your kindness as a strength, they see it as an expectation, something they are entitled to, rather than something they should appreciate. Over time, this can lead to deep frustration and resentment because no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. You might find yourself wondering why others don't do the same for you, why they don't reciprocate your efforts, or why they fail to acknowledge the sacrifices you make. But the problem isn't them, it's the pattern you have allowed to continue. True respect and appreciation do not come from bending over backward to please others. They come from knowing your worth, setting boundaries, and refusing to let people take you for granted. You don't need to prove your value by always saying yes, by always making others happy, or by avoiding conflict. You are already valuable, just as you are. The right people will respect you not because you constantly cater to them, but because you have the confidence to stand up for yourself. The moment you stop trying to please everyone, you will see who truly values you for who you are, not just for what you can do for them. The moment you stop living for others and start living for yourself, everything changes. You no longer feel the weight of constant approval seeking, the exhaustion of endless people pleasing, or the frustration of being taken for granted. Instead, you step into your power, embrace your worth, and start living on your own terms. You learn that respect is more valuable than fleeting approval, that setting boundaries is an act of self-love, and that your happiness matters just as much as anyone else's. So stop being the nice girl who sacrifices herself to keep others comfortable. Be the woman who values herself, who speaks up, who takes up space, and who is unafraid to say no. Not everyone will like it, and that's okay, because the people who truly matter will respect you even more. And most importantly, you will respect yourself.